Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inchstones podcast. As mentioned before, the month of May here on Inchstones is all about the moms. And drilled down one level deeper is that one-on-one conversations when you put two women in a room, specifically autism moms, the connection and what's built and what grows from witnessing and listening to testimony of another autism mom and her actual journey, I believe builds a entirely strong foundation for all of us as individual mothers and women. I have Jean here today. Jean is one of four women from the Moms Talk Autism platform and podcast. I had the wonderful pleasure of being a guest on their podcast. They came on as a group on Inchstones. And when I thought about the moms that I want to amplify to deeply share their own personal journey, it was so apparent and number one on my mind to get these women on here individually. Jean is in Texas outside of Austin, and she has a son, Rory, that is on the spectrum. And she's going to share a bit about her journey today here on Inchstones. Jean, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. The moment you messaged us about this concept and idea that you were thinking, I could not, it was irresistible.
Awesome. I know you guys do this too, but more than anything, I think telling the truth and reality about this life is not just what it takes from us, but what it gives us. So let's dive right in. What really was the moment that shifted everything for you? Can you take us back to the beginning with Rory and what that felt like?
So for me, it wasn't just one moment. It was like a series of realizations. It was a slow noticing and noticing the disconnect between what we were told versus also what we were seeing, immediately identifying those gaps, even if you weren't in a place of acceptance yet. You were just navigating even the diagnostic process. But even once you got diagnosed, you just start. It was just as like slow noticing pieces. There wasn't like this big like crescendo.
Mm-hmm. Do you, what did that season feel like for you? Because I know different people experience it. Sometimes people have this like very immediate switch, that slow buildup. What did that feel like?
I was ridden with grief. Um, I I knew that my life was forever going to be different. Like whatever idea I had about my life, my family's life, my child's life, all of those things, you basically it's a divorce from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you're doing that while also navigating what do you need to do for your child. It was very heavy. Like it was a very heavy time. It was definitely one of the hardest periods of my life that turned into a huge period of growth for me, but that was um, a combination of several years, right? Like that didn't just happen in a series of months or weeks. This happened over a period of years. And I wish I could tell someone that you put them on some accelerated path, but it's the journey that you have to walk through. And just being where we were in the world. I mean, every parent, every parent walks through that in terms of, especially if you were diagnosed 30 years ago and what that diagnostic journey you had, these external factors, the
Yes.
world changing, the landscape changing so much also impacts
Yeah.
how
I
you're
mean,
feeling.
you're hitting on something so universal that a lot of moms that I talk to have shared is that it's the shattering of this dream or whatever you built as your future as a mother. And there's also this like unconscious knowing that you were sold something. You don't even know how you were built to think that. Like I there's this societal conditioning thread that until something so drastically changes that preconceived reality, you don't even realize how conditioned you were to expect something. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Because it's an
It's
undoing
like
that
it's
you
an
do.
undoing. Yeah.
And it's honestly all stemmed from, and I used to talk about this a lot, and I always kind of try to interweave it back into our conversations. But in the area, in the field of psychology, there's the family systems theory. Well, the family
Right.
systems theory is really what drives, it gives you the structure, the scaffolding
Scaffolding.
of how the world approaches
Mhm.
family life, us, and you don't realize how that indirectly is involved in the life that you're groomed for as you grow up to be an adult,
Right.
like what you're thinking. And disability is framed as this thing that's wrong, that makes the family bad in the actual
Right.
traditional sense of the family systems theory. And so there are people in the field that are trying to create that paradigm shift, but we
Mhm.
haven't made that shift. And when you're a parent, when you enter this world, you don't even know that those dynamics are at play and like why it is that way. But once you actually really soak in that that's what's happening, the way your lens is and the way you see the rest of the world is forever change. And that can be lonely too. That's lonely, knowing that like this is why it is that way. And knowing that, how do you as a parent now in this realm impact that paradigm shift as well? How do
Totally.
you change that narrative? And that's why we have these tensions between the social model of
Mhm.
disability and the medical model of disability. And the social model really typically at this point outpaces where we are medically. And there's not a lot of people that can,
Integrate,
what's the
like,
word? They get not even just, yeah, integrates one word, but also like convert,
yes, yes.
can translate
Transform and translate and
and
evolve. Yeah.
right, like where that they can code switch, as a medical
Yes.
professional and wearing that hat, like still knowing that the medical side is a pathway that needs to be exercised and utilized in us for us to get supports and services. But when you don't have that medical professional that can have both of those lenses, the two areas become very siloed and you feel like you live
Totally.
in multiple different worlds. And not to mention just in our own little ecosystems as moms, like
Mhm.
our family dynamics, our community, our local community, our neighborhoods, our schools, those types of things, like there's a lot of silos and we're having to navigate them. It's all fragmented and it's really, really hard to navigate.
The and, you know, to magnify the word hard, I think, we were always told, I don't know what your algorithm is showing you now on social media, but mine's always talking about, like, nervous system regulation and, like, energy and all these things. And I to your point about these siloed, multiple different realities that you live in and sit in because of your children's diagnoses and what you carry for them, the amount of energy it takes to then jump from all those different ones, integrate all those, and continue to shed sort of this identity that you have upon entering motherhood and then evolving into a different one through your own children and in your own family's dynamic and diagnoses. I know for me that was really painful. I was a mom of a typical toddler, and I don't think I realized how strongly I wanted that to be my identity. I don't think I realized how much of a chokehold I had on that, and the pain and the grief that you shared off with before comes with those multiple realities that, like, you have no other choice but to shed it. Like, it begs that you have to, because if you don't, you almost extend the grief and almost, like, create more internal pain.
It is. I mean, the sad part of it is, and it's not on purpose, meaning like
No.
it's not, I should say it's, when I say, well, I should say we're not totally conscious that it's happening,
Right. That's true.
that we are doing that to ourselves.
Mhm.
We don't know. A lot of us have these attachments, and it's very, very hard to become unattached from those things. And like the saying goes, that your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's even if it's not the new life that you chose, you're like, this is what's happening, buddy. Like, this is what's happening now. And it is going to cost you. I mean, I feel like I live in a completely different world now. My life is totally different now, nowhere near where
Mhm.
it was almost 15 years ago. It's just not the same at all.
Yeah.
And not doesn't even touch it. Like, and that was really my identity. So much of my identity was built up in who I became in my career and what my life used
Right.
to be like. I used to live back east. I was from Baltimore, Maryland, and had a whole career in business and food and beverage and catering and events. And I just, that was who I was. And I
Yeah.
thought when I get us settled here in Austin, like, I'm going to get that all going here because I can do that. And as I'm starting to do that, I'm also going through the diagnostic journey with my child. And I'm like, this is not shaking out how I thought. I'm like, this is not, I was like, I have this sensory seeker in my house. There's absolutely, he cannot be unattended for a second.
Yeah, for a second.
And and now I'm the manager of all of these 40 plus hours of therapies and educational plans that he has. And it's like, how did this happen? But it happened. How am I going to say no? You're going to do the thing that you need to do for your kid.
Yeah.
I
Have
don't
you
know.
ever felt have you ever felt like it was unfair?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I
I
felt like it
definitely
was unfair. I felt like it was unfair because it felt so unfair that people didn't understand it. It
yeah.
wasn't like unfair, like, why did this happen to me? What was
Mm,
unfair was the lack of understanding. That's what felt unfair. Like, this feels cruel. How is it that, and I'm somebody, and I used to say this all the time, and I still think it's relevant now because when you think about it, somebody who has the wherewithal to get even, and I had to give up like my career, like that's to give up that to do this. Like this
yeah.
is now my career was to become my child's advocate.
Mhm.
And like how do people who don't have the ability to like the agency, the ability, the capacity, the wherewithal, whatever their barriers are. And I'm like, that's what was so frustrating. That's what I felt was unfair. I felt like
Yeah,
how
that's what's unfair.
that's what was unfair. I didn't feel like it wasn't a woe is me. It was just like it was
Mm,
a why don't you understand me? Why can't you understand this? How I feel like you're jumping up and down going like, why don't you get this? Just like
that's a
do
really,
you think I'm
really,
crazy? Do you think I'm
really
making this up? Do you think this is like
yeah,
in my head? Like,
yeah,
no.
yeah. I mean, that's just
And
such a powerful reframe.
people oversimplified it too. And that was painful. It was like, oh, well, you're just in the trenches right now. And you just wanted to, throat punch somebody when they said that. I'm like, no, 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 this is not the trenches. This is,
This is
I hate
not
to break it to
this is
you,
trench.
forever. And I've
This is a
learned that this
forever
is not
trench.
just a cute, yeah, it's a forever trench. And the trench may change and it may deepen and it may widen and it may have, certain
And by the
other
way, there's
dips.
arrows. There's arrows being thrown at me the entire day. So I'm in the trench. The arrows are shooting down from the sky, and I'm basically told to find cover where there's none. And I think that you hit it so damn beautifully, and it chokes me up. It's not unfair about who our children are. It's unfair that the world's response to our children being who they are is not met with the most intense understanding and support that you would think would just happen based on the goodness and morality of being a human, and
Yeah.
especially being a mother.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you learn so much about humanity real quick. It's like it becomes the contrast is like almost immediate. You start
Mhm.
to notice those. It's hard to unnotice it because it's like where a world where you once belonged, you now are an outlier, and then you're trying to navigate, well, why is it that I'm an outlier? Like this shouldn't be this way. Like, why is it this
No,
way?
no.
So then you're just like becoming one of the other many levels of expertise that we don't plan on having is that you also have to become an anthropologist on this journey to learn like why the world is this way.
It's seriously so true. Like, I find myself like a broken record being like, I want to go back and get my PhD in evolutionary biology. Like, I'm not kidding. I really would. Like, I obviously do not have the time or the bandwidth to do that. But like,
Yeah.
it pulses through me. I'm like, I want to know more about evolutionary biology because I feel like it would inform me so much more about my kids,
Well,
and
you
especially
get
with a boy
that
and
and
a
I want
girl.
to be a modern anthropologist and then we'll go on
Yeah.
the road.
I mean, clone myself, and one part of me does that. I mean, it's so true. It's like, and I guess, to have a silver lining, sometimes those dreams that come up in me of like what this is teaching me, I realize it taps into the parts of me that I've not explored had it not been for my children being who they are. Like, I like that I want to learn more now. I like that's always been in me, but this has brought about like in a fever that I can't help of like, I don't watch TV anymore. Like I literally just consume information and reading case studies and stuff because I genuinely love learning about it. Even as hard as it is, like someone at my typical daughter's basketball game said, "Have you watched this show?" I'm like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." Like, I don't even know what you're referencing. And everyone's like, "You don't?" I'm like, "Guys, I know Caroline Bessette Kennedy is like JFK's wife that died in the plane crash, but like, what are you talking about?" And they're like, where do you live? I'm like, I live in a profound autism world.
Want to watch that, by the way. And I'm just
I
like,
want to watch
I
it too.
don't know. I don't have, I, it's so funny, like what I'm able to carve out time for. And it's so weird. I did watch The Madison. That's 4 episodes,
I
I
don't
think.
even know what you're talking about.
Well, it's actually a really great show about grief. Like,
Okay, so that might be
you know,
alignment.
just
Okay.
like there's not the disability factor, but there's just
Yeah.
very sudden
Yeah.
death and this impact of the family
Oh, okay. I'm
dynamics and
writing
the
it down.
structure. And I
Write it
think
down.
that they're very powerful moments. Like I'm
Okay.
drawn to shows where I can get
Yeah.
the anthropological
Yes. Yes.
aspect from it. Like, okay, where does this fit into my now current preferred interests? Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, the neurodivergence probably does not fall far from the tree
No.
in that area. Like I know that I'm dyslexic, but you know, I feel like I have undiagnosed ADHD and possibly
Yeah.
maybe a little, you know, I'm somewhere on the spectrum. Who knows? But
Who
I
knows?
don't have time for my own diagnostic journey at this moment. I'm
No.
too busy trying to save the world, like literally.
What was I just gonna say about grief? More and more people, and again, maybe this is based on who I, consume as other advocates and special needs parents online. I do think that more and more of us are talking about the grief. Do you notice that at all on what you're taking in?
I
Not from a
do.
negative standpoint, but just from an openness one?
Yes, because there was a lot of attacks that parents like us, when we started talking about our grief
Mm,
about it, got attacked, right? And so then you had a lot of voices rise up to push back and say, we're not saying we're sad about who our kid
right.
is. That's not it. And we can still be sad because this is life changing. And we're sad
Mhm,
because we also can't get, we can't make the world be the way the world should be for our children.
mhm,
You know, and there are things that, you know, why we do not subscribe to the cure culture. You know, there are things that impair our children that we
mhm,
wish we could take away, right?
mhm,
Because they're struggling and suffering. So if we could
mhm.
reduce that. So there's many sides of the coin. We just live in this like binary world now where it's like, well, you're only on one side or the other. I think there were people that really, moms like us, and we did because we had a whole grief series. We still do.
Right.
And I will plug for that. We have
Yeah,
7
definitely.
installments that we go through all 5 stages plus the adaptation piece and then joy and grief coexisting at the same time, which is like this
Mm,
very like taboo topic to think about because if you actually are experiencing joy, then it's like we're so scared that people are not going to believe us that it's still hard. So
the
if
grief
you're
is still
ever
there.
putting out like that, you know, so it's a
Complexity and
rebuild up
nuance.
of yourself. Yes.
Complexity
Yeah.
and nuance. I mean,
This is the world we live in.
yeah, I don't think we've ever not lived in that world, but I think that it's I don't think, I don't know about you, but I talk to my parents a lot. They don't live nearby, but I talk with them a lot about the yes and always of all of this life. And my mom and dad are like, I just didn't I know what you're saying is real, but my dad will always say like, yeah, you're right. I just didn't grow up like talking about it as much as you did. Like when you say that, I believe you and I hear you and I'm like, yeah, I do the same thing. But it's not this like amplified or augmented topic. It wasn't back then. So I don't think it didn't exist. It just wasn't discussed, maybe.
It wasn't. And it wasn't considered to be socially acceptable to talk
Right.
about it, right?
Right.
Like you buried those feelings
Right.
because part of the part of our society is that we're very ableistic and
Yes.
that's a conditioning that we have that we don't know and it's very confrontational for us as parents when we're like, "Oh, wait, I apparently had
Hmm.
very ableistic tendencies." And I think that I would be kidding myself if I
Hmm.
still don't struggle with that because
Hmm.
again, when you're in different environments, and you recognize that people don't get your kid, you immediately want to extinct or reduce
Oh,
what's
without a doubt.
happening. And I'm not always my best self. Right. So like
No,
I can own
it's an
that.
impulse reaction to what you've been trained unconsciously by the world for decades. You know, that very old phrase, like, "You can't teach a dog new tricks." You know, you talk about grandparents. My parents are boomers, aging parents. Um, I can only imagine how hard it is for women like you and I who were thrust into this role, and I know how hard it was to change and evolve. Getting to think about these things 30 years, like, if Sarah at 70, I can only imagine how hard it is to change mindsets and understanding on complexities around this from an older generation. Not to shame them, but almost to say, like, I get that if it's hard for me at 40, I can only imagine what it's like for you at 70, right? Because I'm 30 plus
Yes.
years more into my mindset on this, you know?
Yes. 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 And so funny. I was on a panel last week. And it was an autistic adult was on it. It was all me and a researcher and whatever. And he was telling a story about a certain interaction he had, and he talked about this person being like, well, they were of a different vintage. And I'm like, well, I will forever talk about like generations and age in terms of
That is
vintage
brilliant.
forever. Because I'm
Vintage
like,
level.
like
That is
I am a
awesome.
wine drinker. Like this is perfect.
Yes.
Vintage.
That
They
is
are of a
actually
different vintage.
I love that. Oh my god, that's like a good title of a series, like different vintages of autism moms. Um, well, we were before we pressed her like, seriously. Because well, before we go on, because there are the familial structure scaffolding around us includes mothers and parents and family members from different generations. So it does sort of fall into that bucket, even from more than just that nuclear family or your child. I mean, there's so many generations and vintages that are part of this. And that's like cacophony in it of itself. I remember before my grandfather passed at like 90 something years old, he would say, how did this happen? Sarah, how did this happen? And I remember thinking that is the only phrase that he had the ability to conjure up. He didn't really mean it like that. He didn't really choose to
Yes.
have that expression on his face when he said it, but that was all he would always say to me. I just don't understand how that happened, Sarah. And I go, Grandpa, I don't know
Yeah.
either. But here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. It
What do you,
doesn't land very well for us when we're also in a hyper aroused traumatic stage. And the people are saying those things to you. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't know either.
it's like taking a bullet. It's like,
Yeah, no, you are. And
and I don't
you're
have,
biting down or you're getting
yeah,
surgery without anesthesia and you're biting down on that, bone.
yeah.
Jean, before we press record, I said, what is one thing that you really want to share? And I wanted to touch on this. What do you think the world really gets wrong? And what do you wish people better understood about mothers and caregivers raising children with autism?
So hold on. I actually had this scoped out and I read it
Yeah,
out loud yesterday
because
to myself. And I'm like,
take your time. I think
where
that
did
there's,
I put it?
no, that's okay. You look for it and I'll, share some of the thoughts.
This is it. Right, it is. Here it is.
Okay.
So one of the biggest thing I think the world gets wrong is that disability is often left out of conversations about equity
Mm-hmm.
when it's actually the largest group that intersects with all of them.
Yep.
So all of marginalized, disenfranchised communities, disability is the largest group. So I struggle because you can't talk about race and gender and socioeconomic status and identity without also talking about disability. But the fact is, we do it all the time. There's movements that are built and then unintentionally exclude the very people that are navigating the most complex layers of needs. And that part of the capacity, families like mine and yours are often in survival mode. And when you're fighting systems just to get basic support, basic needs like insurance, school services, safety in your own home, because like that's a thing, you don't always have the time and energy to show up in the broader advocacy spaces. So therefore we get left out because we don't matter, but because the system already takes everything we have to just stay afloat. People don't realize that, and so often it happens. It happens in other groups too.
Mhm.
We don't realize that while we're trying to fight for inclusion, we're also excluding other people that intersect. And the
Totally.
beautiful thing I think about the disability group is that every disenfranchised community intersects with that because disability does not discriminate. I feel like
Yes.
that is like, if I could get everybody's like
Yes.
awareness up here about that, we could literally change the world. Like it would change everything. It
You're
would make the
absolutely right,
whole world better.
'cause it touches every
Yes.
marginalized group.
I
So when
mean,
a
it doesn't
marginalized
discriminate.
group includes every discriminated, yeah, when it includes every discriminated population by by default, by just being how it is, it ends up being like the thread, like the kintsugi, like that putting it back together, like it's the part that actually pulls it in to being what should be seen as the best example for why equity needs to happen from this exact group. I've never thought about it that way. That is powerful, Jean.
I love that you just brought up kintsugi because I love kintsugi. I
Come on, man.
love kintsugi, and
It's one of the
it's
only
very
things I think.
therapeutic. So if there's anything that's ever broken in your
Yes,
house, I recommend learning that process and figuring you will be so pleased with
yes.
yourself. And it's
It's
a very
so
good
it can be
practice. It's so therapeutic.
literal, figurative. Um, I share with you about my own home going through some construction now from a water damage, and at the end of the day, it really does make me sit deeply in the idea of kintsugi, because there's these things that happen in life, that happen structurally, that happen emotionally, and it's one of the things that I'm so glad that I've thought about so much that now it's a default mode of how I think about things, which is like anything, right? You start to say it enough, you actually believe it, and I do.
Yeah. I remember waking up. I've had my house flooded before, and it was because of my child backing up the toilet. And I
Yeah.
woke up
Yes.
to
Yes.
my
Same.
feet sinking into water. And I was like, oh
Uh,
my God.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. This was months of repair, and we're going to talk about the expenses. And
Mhm.
it's very cute when it's like, well, we have all these nice systems in place for us to survive. And then something like that happens. And it's like, well, that is all out the door.
You're like, so the thing I have going for me, I have a pulse. I'm always like, what are the things that I can count? I'm like, okay, I'm alive.
Hmm.
All right. Well, Jean, these are just, every part of this conversation is just so powerful. And like I said at the beginning, I believe so deeply that every conversation, every testimony, every lived experience that can be shared as beautifully as you just did with your own life and being the mother to Rory helps, and it expands, and it has a ripple effect and a butterfly effect in every which way. And I am so thankful for your willingness to share and how you do your life as a way to give peace to others that are along the journey. Before we sign off, what is one thing that you would tell a mother who has a newly diagnosed child?
The most common thing, and I feel, and it sometimes feels like cliche, is that you're not that you're not alone, obviously, for starters, but that this life did not become easier, but it does become clear. And in that
Mm,
clarity, I have found a way to stand in it with honesty and love, and without it needing to be anything else other than what it is. Like, you will arrive to that point, and even in the moments of discontent and crisis and struggle, you will have this, you can have that kind of feeling. That's almost like this wholeness that can happen, but you don't feel whole in the beginning. And it's going to feel like you're literally walking around just bleeding all over the place. But you can't say that you are. And you got to like keep going. Just, I used to say that getting diagnosed is like being sent out into the rapids without an oar. You're on a raft and you have like open bullet wounds all over you. And you're just like, come on, kids, it's going to be okay. Like,
yep.
and that's what it is. And it's like, these are these soft instructions that we have, like whatever this means that we're supposed to
Yeah.
do with
Yeah.
all the cocktail therapies. And like, this is going to be some magical solution. We're just like, I have absolutely no idea how this is going to end up, but
Well,
we're here.
Yeah, and I think that the survival angle of it from every other mother that I've spoken to that is, numbers of years in on this journey can say the exact same thing. And I'm so glad you illuminated that because they are none of the women and mothers that are earlier on and beginning this journey, they are not alone. And that there is sisterhood and community that can be found in the bleeding parts of all of it, and especially at the beginning, and to reach out and find those people because it will actually plug up some of those holes. And it won't fix it, but it will be a very amazing balm for healing and progression of being conscious to this life. Jean, thank you so much for your time here today on Inchstones and for the work that you do with the other moms on Moms Talk Autism. You are a gift to this community, and I am so appreciative and I'm honored to stand by you as one of your fellow moms.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to
Awesome.
have you as a fellow mom.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening. And until next time here on the Inchstones podcast.